Hey photographer, Jessica Whitaker here, and in this video I'm comparing the 50mm focal length up against the 85mm focal length. In this lens comparison, I will be using the Nikon S line. However, it doesn't matter what camera brand you're shooting with because we're focusing on the focal length. I will touch on these lenses, but there are timestamps on this video so that you can skip ahead. Here on my YouTube channel, I teach photography from a practical perspective, and that's the case with these lens comparisons. I like to make it as simple as possible, and I filter out as much technical jargon as I can because I want you to walk away from my videos feeling empowered with a purchasing decision versus left feeling even more confused and overwhelmed. There'll also be a blog post linked in the description box if you would like to see the sample images up close. This video is sponsored by Narrative, which is a culling and editing software. Narrative was built from the ground up to save you time, not replace your judgment. Narrative is for photographers who want to make sure each image they took is still being offered as an option where they have full creative control over the gallery. There's no load time as you toggle between each image. There are different features like focus assessments that tell you how well your subject is in focus, eye assessments that give you information about when your subject's eyes are closed, but it knows the difference between blinking, kissing, and looking down. The eye assessment is especially great for bridal party images. Narrative does not use the cloud, so your images are private, and you can also use it offline. They recently rolled out a new feature called Narrative AI Editing that you can use if you so choose. All it is pattern recognition from your own edits from previous work. This allows you to upload your Lightroom catalog, and then the program uses pattern recognition from your catalog to create a base preset for you to apply on your culled images. And I really like how accurate it is. I didn't have to do any additional training or wait a period of time for it to get into the groove of what I like. All of the plans that they offer have unlimited projects, edits, and culling. It's available for both Windows and Mac. Sign up for a 14-day free trial using the link in my description box. No credit card required. If you decide you love it, you can use code Jessica Whitaker for 10% off. Let's get into the video. The 85 is more true to what your eyes see in the mirror of yourself. The 85 does not skew the body's proportions. The 85mm does mean that you have to be further away from your subject. So if you often shoot in tight spaces like a coffee shop, this would not be the best fit for you because you're going to be very limited. You have to stand quite far away. The 85mm creates a more intense subject background separation than that of a 50, and we'll talk about that more in a second. And that is a stylistic choice that I personally prefer. I really like to use an 85 for reception detail shots at weddings. I'm going to throw up on the screen a side-by-side comparison of the 50 versus 85. It's not the exact same photo and framing since I was shooting a wedding, but it will give you an idea. The 85 is a great option for shots of the guests during the ceremony, particularly parents, but you can see here that the 85 isolates the subject and it can paint this more impactful image than if I was using my 24-70. I think that if there was more education about the 85mm, a lot of photographers would go for an 85 because of that more intense subject background separation, which another thing to consider is how the different lenses interact with the environment itself. If you like to play around with having things in the foreground of your images, the 85mm is going to emphasize those things in the foreground and make them appear larger, almost as if you were to bend down and look through the field yourself, what I'm showing here on the screen. The way that the grass looks in person is the perspective that the 85mm takes on. And then I'm going to throw up the 50mm. Do you see how all those little flowers are a little bit smaller? If you're anything like me and you would like to shoot wide open at 1.2 and 1.4 because of that gorgeous blurry background, then you would probably love an 85 over the 50 because of how compressed the 85 focal length becomes with your subject. It truly creates this dreamlike painting effect. But for a lot of photographers, they might want more of that environmental context of the 50mm. Before we go any further into the differences of these two focal lengths, I do want to share the pricing for the lenses that I used for this video and for all the example images. If you were to buy the 50mm new on Nikon, you are looking at $2,250. If you were to buy used on KEH camera, you're looking at $1,500 in their Excellent Plus condition. Canon's version, which I've also shot with quite a bit, is $2,600. The 85mm, if you were to buy it new on Nikon's website, you're looking at $3,000. But if you were to buy it used on KEH camera, you can get it in excellent condition, which is basically the same thing, for $2,300. Still expensive, but a lot better. Canon's RF 85 1.2 retails for $3,100. I don't know, Nikon's just playing in their face by making theirs $100 less than Canon's. Either way though, I always encourage photographers to buy used versus new, and KEH is the best place to buy, sell, trade in your camera equipment, both film and digital. You can save up to 40% off of new retail prices. With KEH, every single piece of equipment is thoroughly quality inspected, tested, repaired if necessary, and then rated on a quality tier system from Excellent Plus all the way down to Bargain, which is where I shop, which means that there is going to be cosmetic wear and tear, but it doesn't affect the glass or the picture quality. Now let's talk about what happens to the background itself. The reason why a longer lens makes your subject and the background feel like they're pulled close together, almost like everything pops into place next to each other. This effect actually has a name. It's called lens compression. I'm gonna put up some photos I took of my friend in front of a mountain setting. This is Mount Si over in North Bend, Washington. Because I'm standing so much further away from her with the 85, and it reads as so much larger behind her, which is closer to how massive it actually feels standing there in person looking up at Mount Si. Versus the 35mm, you can see it shows more of the mountain, but it's a lot smaller. And then we have the 50mm in front of that same mountain, and it's kind of that sweet spot. But if you really want that impact, I think the 85mm is more of the choice, but we are in a giant field here where we're not restricted by the distance, so I can be as far back as I want to. This is why I think the 85mm might genuinely be the best lens for anybody who loves that background forward kind of photo. It flattens the sense of depth between the different layers in front of you, holding them visually closer together in the frame, even though in real life they're just as far apart. I want to give you another example. Here's a photo where I stood in the exact same spot for both shots. I just switched from a 50mm to the 85mm. And because of this, with the 85, the whole thing reads as one dense solid wall of flowers. I'm gonna bring the 35mm back in. I'm sorry guys, but I think that this will help you make a decision about if the 50 or the 85 is a good option for you. Take this photo of my model outside of this theater, for example. That structure over the entrance is the building's canopy. In the 35, I'm standing pretty close to my subject, so the underside of that canopy, which is actually the closest part of the structure to my camera, it gets exaggerated and it takes up a huge amount of the frame, while the sign that's in the background gets swallowed by the canopy and it almost disappears. In the 50mm, that gap starts to close, so you lose some of that overpowering underside of the canopy and you gain a little bit more of that sign in the background. By the time I get to the 85, I have backed up so much farther, so the whole structure reads as more proportionate in what you see in real life. So if you are somebody who wants a lot of architecture and building detail in your background and you want it to appear larger and more present in the shot itself, the same way it does in person, the 85mm is going to get you there. Now we're going to talk specifically about the S lenses themselves for those who are curious. Again, timestamps are on this video if you want to skip ahead. The 50mm has two coatings. It has a nano crystal coat and an Arno coat. The nano crystal coat cuts down on internal reflections across pretty much the whole range of light, and it's especially good at killing that reddish ghosting effect that you sometimes get when you're shooting towards a light source. While the Arno coat handles a more specific situation, so it's handling the light hitting your lens head on, like when you're shooting straight into the sun. The 85mm only has the nano crystal coat and not the Arno. So this is a thing that I was like, well, why then, if the 85 doesn't have the Arno, why is it $750 more than the 50? The 85 actually has fewer lens elements overall, not more. Quick explanation before I throw numbers at you. Elements are just the individual pieces of glass that are stacked inside of a lens. Each one helps bend and focus light, so your final image comes out sharp instead of soft or blurry. So the 50mm has 17 of these elements, including 3 aspherical and 2 ED elements, which are just glass types that handle specific problems like distortion and color fringing. The 85 has 15 elements in total, with only 2 aspherical and 1 ED element. So all of this boring technical jargon is just to say you're not paying for more glass. The price comes down to the size. The 85 is physically larger and it's heavier because holding a 1.2 aperture at a longer focal length takes a much larger, more precisely made elements. And larger glass is dramatically more expensive to produce, even when there's less of it. It also has 11 rounded aperture blades instead of 9, which is built specifically for smoother bokeh. So since this lens is engineered and marketed directly at wedding and portrait photographers, you're actually paying for the physical size and precision of the glass, and you're paying for the aperture mechanism that is built for that creamy background blur. I promise that this is as technical as we will get in the video. Let's talk about speed. Both of these lenses are very fast, even in low light situations like dusk or blue hour. If a lens is $3 grand, I would hope it works during blue hour. Both of these two lenses use 2 smaller autofocus motors that work together instead of one big motor doing all the work. And that is what lets them react quickly and quietly, even when your camera is actively tracking a moving subject's eye. Both lenses were tack sharp, even in low light situations like blue hour. Both lenses really impressed me. It makes me want to do comparisons of the other versions like the 1.4 and 8. So let me know if you'd be interested in that. Both of these lenses, unlike the Canon RF ones, are completely weather sealed, as is the entire Nikon S line. Both of these lenses have gorgeous bokeh. They are both super creamy when it comes to golden hour backlighting. These two lenses perform virtually the same, which is a good thing because you want consistency when you're spending money on equipment. The entire Nikon S line is considered like a hybrid lens, meaning that it works just as well for photo as it does video. Here's the thing, you might think, well, wouldn't that be the bare minimum? So you would think so. Actually not, because the Canon RF line have a video that's coming out, I think after this one, on the Canon RF 35mm lens that I reviewed. That lens from Canon is also a hybrid. The other RF lenses are not. There's one other one, I believe, that is also a hybrid, but not the entire RF line is. So you're paying thousands of dollars for a lens that you would like to use in video, but it's not engineered just as well for video as it is for photo, whereas the Nikon S line is. So this is kind of crazy because I feel like Nikon is kind of the least popular of the three, trifecta, Sony, Canon, Nikon. It's interesting because how is Canon more popular in the photography community, but the Nikon mirrorless lenses like the S line is designed to perform even better for video because only 2 of the Canon RF ones out of the whole line perform well for video. Like, I don't know, it's just something to know. I know we're talking about photography here, but when it's several thousands of dollars, I think it's important to mention. Now it's time to share the sample images taken in a variety of lighting situations. If you want to view these images in better quality up close, I will have a link to the blog post I'm doing on this video down below in the description box. Which focal length should you buy? Who I think would suit the 50mm is if you are buying your first prime lens and you shoot in tight spaces often, the 50mm is probably where you want to start. It's proportionate, it's versatile, it gives you that subject background separation without forcing you to back yourself into a wall like that of an 85. It's also the more budget-friendly entry point, especially if you go with that 1.8 version. If you want a lens that can do a little bit of everything from environmental portraits to tablescapes to full body shots, the 50mm is a workhorse that will get you there. Who I think should buy the 85mm? So if you know you already love that dreamy compressed, how many times have I said compressed in this video, very blurred out background look, you shoot a lot of portraits or headshots, the 85mm might be worth the jump for you. The trade-off with this focal length is space. You need room to back up, so it's not the lens for tight quarters, but if distance isn't a constraint for you, I genuinely think more beginners would be happier starting here than with a 50mm. If you can only buy one right now, I want you to think about where you shoot the most. If you are in tight spaces, you want versatility, go for the 50mm. If you've got room to move and you want that painting-like effect, go for the 85. But if weddings or portraits are what you shoot, don't think of this as an either or forever purchase, because eventually you'll likely want both in your camera bag because they solve different problems rather than compete with each other. If you're a photographer who is looking to join a kind, encouraging, and inclusive photography community where you can ask specific questions about your specific business, or maybe you need more insight into which focal length would suit you and your business best, ask away in my Build and Bloom Photography Facebook group. It's free and it always will be. Whether you need help drafting a response to a difficult client situation or you just want an extra set of eyes on a gallery before you send it out, Build and Bloom is my best free resource. Be sure to hit subscribe so you're the first to know when new free videos for your business come out, and I will see you in my next video. Click right here to watch and to learn. I'll see you there.